are not their main breeding objectives. I would argue success in the show ring comes into that category. If your main criteria is to breed show dogs, can you justify selling puppies as pets? I'll leave that for someone else to answer. So you really have to rigidly stick to the selection program, and that's why you need the sort of objective test that Tammy was talking about, because otherwise you'll always say that this dog is okay. May not be perfect, but it's good enough. It's only if you've got objective data to see that this dog is in the bottom half that it's hard to argue that it's good enough to breed from. So you need to record abnormalities and you need to record scores for the important traits. That is very hard to get people to do that, I know, but that's what you need to do. And then you need to submit that data to a computer program that calculates estimated breeding values, because that'll take into account the score on the dogs, the score on its relatives, and any non-genetic factors that are important, like the age of the dog when it was scored. If you're going to do crossbreeding, you still need to do selection. I've tried to illustrate here. Let's say this is breed A, this is the average, but there's a big spread about that. Breed B on average is not quite so good, but there's a big spread about that. The crossbreds in my imaginary diagram are on average better than either breed, but there's exactly the same spread in the crossbreds as there is in the purebreds. So bad crossbreds are worse than good purebreds. So if you're going to practice crossbreeding, you've still got to select the best animals as parents of the next generation of crossbreds. I should have good scientific data on this, and I don't. So I'll tell you a story. My niece has two crossbreds, a Labrador Cocker Spaniel and a Cocker Spaniel Golden Retriever. So she did everything right. She got these hardy crossbreds. One has epilepsy and one has really bad skin problems. I have two purebred Golden Retrievers, and one of them has hip dysplasia and the other one, we haven't discovered what's wrong with it yet, but probably we will. But my point is that breeding crossbreds is not a cure for all of these things. It puts the odds a bit more in your favour, but you still need to select the best parents. This litter of German Shepherd boxer crosses was a delightful litter. They were lovely dogs. I tried to get them called the Goddard breed so that I'd be remembered well. But it wasn't because they were German Shepherd boxer crosses that they were good. It's because we used a very good boxer stud dog and a very good German Shepherd bitch to breed them. The next part of the breeding program is to avoid inbreeding. What do I mean by inbreeding? Inbreeding is when the dog and the bitch who are going to mate together are related to each other. And the more closely related they are, the more inbred the puppies are. The effect of this is to make a whole lot of rare abnormalities more common. Let's suppose you have a recessive single gene abnormality like progressive retinal atrophy, and it occurs 1 in 10,000 times in non-inbred puppies of this breed. It'll occur 13 times per 10,000 puppies in matings between half-brother and sister. Okay, you say, 13 in 10,000 is still not a big problem. I can live with that. But the trouble is there are hundreds or thousands of abnormalities like this, and they all go up in frequency by 13 times if you mate half-brothers and sisters together. Now, somebody will say, I mated full brothers and sisters together and the pups were all right, and sometimes they are. But you increase the risk of abnormalities enormously by doing so. The last thing should be really obvious, as following on a bit from what Pauline said, don't select for abnormalities. Of course you say nobody would select for abnormalities, but dog breeders do it all the time. The gene for extreme white spotting, which causes virtually white boxes, it also causes deafness. Not all the time, but quite often. The gene for ridgebacks in ridgebacks causes a problem called dermoid sinuses. They're well documented cases. I suspect, but have no proof, that selection for a rolling gait in Old English sheepdogs and for a sloping top line in German shepherds increased their hip dysplasia problems. If you select for extreme conformation, you can almost guarantee something will go wrong. I mean, the reason why wolves didn't look like that wasn't by chance. It was because if you did look like that, you had something wrong with you. The problem is that in the show ring, so often the extreme becomes the thing that wins the prize. I used to have an Irish setter a long time ago. 50 years ago, Irish setters were more or less normal-looking dogs with a red coat. Then, in the show rings, ones that were very tall and skinny and very narrow throughout won prizes. And you'd be hard-pressed to find a Irish setter today. Well, you'd be hard-pressed to find one at all because nobody has them anymore. But if you did find one, the majority of them are very narrow, right through, and they're not what you would call a hardy conformation and healthiness. Labradors used to be placid dogs. Then somebody decided that they needed more get up and go. And now I meet a percentage, not all Labradors, but a percentage of Labradors that are pathologically excitable. Marley, if you've read the book or seen the movie, is probably an example. So, you know, people made really bad selection decisions. Not only did they fail to make good ones, they made bad ones. Selection for aggression is just completely unjustifiable. Someone will tell me I'm wrong, but there's just no excuse for saying that this is the way my breed ought to be if you intend that breed to be kept as pets. So, breeding objectives. Your main breeding objective ought to be suitability as pets. And what that generically means is healthy, low fearfulness, low aggression and low excitability. The genetics of those traits, there are some single gene traits like some of the genetic abnormalities, but the majority of those traits are controlled by many genes and environmental effects. There are differences between breeds. There's hybrid vigour for fitness traits, not so much for behavioural traits and conformation traits, but for fitness traits, crossbreds are a little bit better. And for the same traits, inbreeding makes things worse. And virtually all of those traits we're interested in are partially heritable. There's some genes, there's some environmental effect. The best thing that you can do is to select the good ones as parents. So, how to improve? Obviously, select a suitable breed. Consider crossbreeding. You don't have to. I've got purebred dogs, but crossbreds on average have an advantage. Select the best dogs as parents, minimise inbreeding, and don't select for abnormalities. And that's all. Thank you very much.